Live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this TNTP webinar on From Classrooms to Careers, how schools and districts can prepare students for a changing workforce. I'd like to just introduce myself. I'm Manaz Sharania. I am the Chief Transformation Officer at TNTP and will be moderating today's session. First, I'd like to go into a few quick housekeeping. Let's see, if you're having any audio trouble, be sure to check your device settings or find our troubleshooting guide in the resource list. If your screen freezes or you hear music, just refresh your browser, that should work. You'll also find some helpful tools in the webinar console. There's slides and resources in the resource list and a group chat to connect with other attendees. We do encourage you to ask questions. You can use the Q&A tab for that, not the group chat. If you watch for at least 53 minutes, you'll get a certificate of completion via email. And don't worry if you miss anything, an on-demand recording and slide deck will be available at edweek.org within 24 hours. So here's a quick look at what we'll be covering today. We'll start by setting the stage and naming a core challenge districts are facing in connecting academic content to students' lives outside the classroom. Then we'll explore a real-world case study from Alton School District and TNTP. After that, we'll dive into a panel Q&A and go deeper and wrap up with audience questions with concrete next steps. First, I'd love to introduce you to the folks leading our call today. Superintendent Elaine Kane leads Alton Community Unit School District, where she's led with a deep commitment to her hometown. With over 30 years in education, she champions strong instruction, community partnerships, and student opportunity, believing that public education is a calling, and I love this, Alton's people are its greatest strength. Next, I'd like to introduce Sarah Adams. Sarah is a colleague of mine and is a Midwest consulting partner at TNTP, leading work across Illinois and beyond to drive academic gains and system-level changes. A former principal, supervisor, and teacher, she brings deep expertise in instruction and leadership with a strong commitment to educational equity and opportunity for all students. Rusty Ingram is the Metro East Director of Operations and Support Services at Alton Memorial Hospital, BJC Healthcare. A dedicated healthcare leader and youth advocate, he has expanded workforce pathways for local students and strengthened community health partnerships, earning national recognition for Alton Memorial's longstanding. America intends its education system to be the cornerstone of nation's success, the great equalizer propelling each generation beyond the one before it. Yet we haven't fully delivered on this promise. Today, education does not equip every child with the tools they need to thrive as adults. Jobs are changing. Some experts even estimate 85% of the jobs that will be available in 2030 haven't even been identified yet. Income mobility has also been on a steady decline since the 1940s. Today, only half of young people grow up to earn more than their parents, down from 90% in the 1940s. Furthermore, our graduates are emerging from high schools and colleges without the durable skills expected at entry-level positions like critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. Meanwhile, we have 8 million jobs unfilled. American education has not delivered on its promise to young people. We continue to graduate young people who are woefully unprepared to tackle the great challenges our nation will face in the years ahead. Now, there is one thing we know for sure. Academics remain foundational. Expanding access to strong academics is more urgent now than ever, given the academic setbacks from the pandemic and the growing inequities between affluent students and those experiencing poverty. Our analysis at TNTP with some longitudinal data, in fact, clearly showed that a strong academic foundation paid dividends for both young people who went to college and those who went straight into the workforce. But we also found that academics alone, even at scale, can't level the playing field for students experiencing poverty. We must think bigger. If PK-12 education is not serving as an adequate path of opportunity into adulthood, how can we build a better path? So in 2024, TNTP published a report you may be familiar with called Paths of Opportunity, where we laid out our hypothesis that it's a combination of 5 factors that will create widespread access to economic and social mobility. We found that young people need 1, a strong academic foundation that enables them to learn on grade level at minimum. 2, opportunities to build social capital and activate networks to advance goals. 3, personal support in their lives to navigate towards goals and stay on track. 4, civic and community engagement to participate fully in society and shape a better future. And 5, they need career-connected learning to build the skills and experiences for evolving careers. That's what we're going to talk about today. Career-connected learning, which I'll refer to as CCL, is an approach that integrates academic learning with real-world work experiences, starting as early as elementary school and continuing throughout a student's K-12 journey. CCL helps students explore career options, develop transferable skills, and apply what they're learning in the classroom to real-world context, done right. When students can see how algebra, for example, relates to architecture, or how writing skills connect to healthcare communication, their learning becomes more relevant, meaningful, and engaging. By connecting the dots between core classes and students' career aspirations, schools can create a unified instructional program that directly supports young people to thrive in school and beyond. At TNTP, we work with school system leaders to strengthen and expand access to high-quality career and technical education programs in the broader scope of career-connected learning pathways. Our focus is on helping districts design programs that are equitable, aligned to local workforce needs, and built in a way that prepares students for both colleges and careers. But what does that look like in practice? To answer that, I invite you to join me in turning to a real-world example from Alton Community School District, where bold leadership and a strong partnership helped bring this vision to life. I'm going to now pass the mic to my colleague, Sarah Adams, to share more.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Adams. I am a partner in Illinois, as Manaz introduced. I have had the opportunity to work with Alton for several years. I think in our partnership with Alton, the ultimate challenge that we're trying to work through is helping to bring the superintendent's vision to life for what CTE programming should look like. There was infrastructure in place to make the program with buildings, course offerings, and staff that were committed to doing the work. And we provided an opportunity to partner with them to make sure that we were ensuring that pathways weren't add-ons, but embedded opportunities that align to students' needs, district priorities, and community growth. So our approach was to partner with local leaders and define career goals for students. That all was grounded in our first move with the district, which was to really dig in and find out what is the context, what is the need. We talked to students, families, community business members, other community members, and key stakeholders to figure out what our starting point was. Once our incredible staff were able to gather that information, some of them are in the webinar today, we were able to map out a cadence of meeting on a regular basis to have some connected group learning and how do we build out this programming. So we mapped out high demand careers that we already had invested within the CT programming. And then we took a look at the programming that already existed and were able to think about how can we refine this in order to make sure that students were receiving what was intended by the leadership in the district. We built flexible work-based learning opportunities for all students, and we will see major changes within 1 year. Alton now offers clear student-driven pathways where students have voice in selecting that. They have real-world experience. They're offered certifications and dual credit. We'll go into this a little bit more as we begin to talk about our case study, and you'll be able to hear from several of our partners in Alton as well. So we'll just dive into the case study. I just want to talk about reiterating really quickly that when we first started working with Alton a few years ago, we had a 1.0 version of this. I worked with Superintendent Kane. She said, hey, my CT programming is existent. I want to make sure that we maximize impact. And so our initial attempt was one where we had an opportunity to learn from, okay, this was information seeking, but how can we be more clear about what we wanted to accomplish out of this? Through the gracious gift of General Motors, we were able to partner with them, which we've been doing for 4 years. Their main goal in supporting TNTP and launching projects and having an impact within this field is to maintain strong opportunities for increased access, enhanced student exploration, and participation and success in STEAM careers, which is something that we knew Alton was ready for because of Superintendent Kane's commitment to student success and her relational strengths within the community. So that's how we began this partnership over the last year in Alton. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about with my colleagues in Alton about what that looks like and what we were able to accomplish in just 1 year through the support of our on the ground team. So when we think about our partnership, 4 big things come to mind of what were we actually trying to accomplish. The first was increase that exposure and choice. Pathways required us to rethink how we present opportunities to students. And instead of CT classes being like electives and add-ons, the school made an intentional effort for us to, through this partnership, begin to think really clearly about how are we going to provide students with clear information about options, ensure that scheduling supported student choice and that they had a say in the things that they were interested in, and to give students time to explore before committing and provide direction for them to navigate on the pathways of their choice. Secondly, we thought about, okay, well, there is lots of opportunity for hands-on learning. How can we expand what's already existing? So once students selected pathways, they had a choice to practice skills inside the school building through the course offerings at the high school campus. We then emphasized moving beyond theory and giving kids meaningful practice with tools, projects, and applied experiences, which included internships that they were able to experience to be able to actually put into play the things that they were learning at school. Along with that was that real world exposure. So we built out those opportunities for students to take those skills into real workforce through these community partnerships that we're planning through these regular meetings that occurred twice a month. We had planning opportunities, and then we had community connection opportunities where we actually fleshed out what would this look like to get kids from where they are, which is, yeah, we're learning about these things, but how can we make sure that they had hands-on opportunities to do the work? And so that was built out. This was a big innovation year, and through Superintendent Kane and Principal Frankie's leadership, we were able to come up with big innovation to think about how do we redo scheduling? How do we create opportunities where kids have more flexibility in picking the courses of their choice based on their interests instead of until a course expands? How do we involve counselors in supporting students to make those choices, as well as making sure there was some flexible scheduling that allowed kids to actually participate with some input from the community members that were able to help us really concretely think through that. So this whole structure of partnering with the community helped us to come up with better interactions. Us having this plan and partnering, and when I say us, I feel like I am actually a part of Alton. Superintendent Kane can attest to that. We actually were able to see, okay, we have this clear plan. We have put lots of resources into this. We're actually meeting and coming up with concrete solutions of how to strengthen programming. That helped us to to gain some more of our credibility, and allowed us to partner with community colleges to create dual credit opportunities so that when students left high school, they had credits in their trade profession. And in just 1 year, the district moved from meeting the state requirement of one professional accreditation for their students to establishing 5 endorsements, which is a significant expansion for student options and access. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleagues here in Alton, Superintendent Kane and Rusty, who's going to talk us through what did that actually look like in action. Can't hear you, Elaine.
Thank you. Thanks for that kind introduction. And we definitely consider Sarah part of Team Alton here. She's definitely, we share the mission and the work together. And I would say that in this particular project, what Alton has benefited from, we're not unusual in saying that this is a priority, this mission is a priority, and giving our students access to relevant experience and clear pathways towards opportunities at graduation. But as most superintendents can say, and many districts can say, it can be challenging to enact your priorities when you're running a district and taking care of the day-to-day. And what the partnership with TNTP has provided us is a structure, a system, and I call it real-time consultation for our next steps in making this happen for our students. And so we had a great foundation, and CTE never really went away here in Alton, but it had turned into more of, I would say, more of an undefined course elective for students. And so with the work together and by pulling together our community stakeholders and industry partners, we were really able to define a relevant, clear pathways for our students so that they know exactly the sequence of courses that can help make opportunities possible for them to get into a real-world internship by junior or senior year. Within that, simultaneously, the state of Illinois, or coincidentally, sometimes it feels, identified college and career pathway endorsements for student diplomas. And that required, if a district in Illinois wants to offer an endorsement on a student diploma, they have to have these pathways defined, and students have to be able to have demonstrated at least 60 hours of internship experience in the pathway or an industry-sponsored project in the classroom. And so those industry partnerships were critical for us to provide these endorsements for our students. And this past year, we were able to develop 5 pathways: fire science, early childhood education, electricity, engineering, and medical professions. And that's because of partnerships with industry professionals just like Rusty Ingram here, representing BJC, which is a place where we have been able to connect and allow our students hospital experience. We have a lot of students that say they want to be in nursing because they hear there's a lot of opportunity in nursing, but sometimes that's identified as, I think I want to be a nurse, but because of the amazing on-site experience that Rusty has been able to provide at Alton Memorial Hospital, our students are getting a taste of the actual profession and really developing a skill set that is transferable in any profession. Rusty, I wonder if you would talk a little bit about your experience coming together as one of our partners and developing with us the 5. We spent some time asking our employers and our industry partners what skills were really important for our students to demonstrate to be able to come into the workplace and be successful. And so you were one of the key advisors on talking about how we can prepare students for placement in the workplace. You want to talk about some of that networking and collaboration?
Yeah, it was thanks, Elaine. I was, it was a pleasure to be part of those activities in the room to hear from not only Superintendent Kane, but the leadership from the high school as well as students in a shared group with other businesses in the Alton area to talk about what's a program look like, what do employers look for in prospective new hires in all of our areas. So it was a vast discussion. I think we tackled a number of different areas, whether it's different skill sets that we're all looking for in a number of different broad areas, not only medicine, but the areas that Superintendent Kane had mentioned. And so I think it really opened our eyes, strengthening the partnership with not only the school district, but other entities in the region. So very pleased to participate in that. And it's been a long-standing relationship. This is just the newest facet. Superintendent Kane brought Reach Out and Read about 10 years ago that really focused on reading with second graders and how do we get those levels up. So this is just another facet that we're very happy to partner with the school district on.
Well, in the outcomes, when I think about what we have now as a result of the year together and by bringing our stakeholders together, is we developed an internship handbook. And this really defines the relationship between the employer and the school district, the relationship between the employer and the student, and the expectations, and also the consent with the guardian of the student. In addition, we took what became named the 5 durable skills or employable skills, and they turned them into 5 C's. Character, collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. Because really those were the things that, whether it was Alton Steel or Alton Memorial, that's what our partners were telling us they wanted students to be able to come out and demonstrate in those 5 C's. And within that, as an employer hosting a student intern, the question was, well, how will I communicate how the student intern is performing? And so we have a rubric as part of our handbook that was developed in partnership so that employers can give students feedback on their performance in the internship, but also our staff can give students feedback in the classroom on those 5 C's with regards to readiness for placement in a workplace. And those are real, tangible tools that make what was once an idea an actuality, and helps all of us to be in alignment on what this looks like for our students, our staff, and our families.
Great. So I think the only thing that I wanted to add to kind of close this out before we move to our Q&A panel is just that I think the success in Alton was possible because of the vision that had already lived in the district and some of the infrastructure that had already been established. And partnering with TNTP just provided the structure, expertise, and the facilitation to turn the vision into action, making sure that those conversations happened and that barriers were addressed and opportunities were created. So in just 1 year, as Elaine mentioned, Alton's career connected learning pathways became more valid, more applied, and more marketable to get additional resources for kids. So we're expanding access for students and deepening ties with the community as a result of the structure in which we supported this district team. So when we're working with our partners at TNTP, we're really thinking about what's the problem that we're trying to address here and to solve for. And I think as we begin our work as an organization or continue this work to create pathways, STEM and CTE pathways, we want to think about what is already existing, what's the existing groundwork for STEM CTE pathways, and how can we begin to build on what is existing in the community. And the way we've structured that is by having that landscape analysis, looking at the community, what is there that's available, taking that context, and then once we find those key stakeholders through that landscape analysis, is creating a structure where we can meet and ensure that we're getting all of that information into building a sustainable structure that's going to help more kids have access to those career pathways. And that's what we were able to accomplish in Alton this year. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Manaz.
Thank you so much. I think this context is actually really, really helpful and a great precursor to some of the specific questions we have and we anticipate many of the audience members have. I'd actually like to start with you, Superintendent Elaine, and you started talking about this, and I'd like us to narrow in a little bit. Why was it so important that this work not just add new courses, but redesign the student career connected learning experience more holistically?
Well, in my experience, our students, our juniors and senior students, they're at a point in their life where they're trying to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives, right? And there's just a tremendous amount of pressure on students, for one, to decide, to feel like the next decision is the biggest decision of their life. And so that's a big part of the experience of high school, is helping them to understand that it's not one decision, but it's a series of decisions for the rest of your life. And actually, as the point was made earlier in the conversation, the careers that they actually participate in probably don't even exist yet. At some point in their lives, they have to have this skill set to be able to be flexible and adaptable and good, strong problem solvers and lifelong learners. And so that was really part of it. The other part of it is, when we're looking at our student experience, and we're committed to providing students with an excellent student experience that creates opportunities for them upon graduation. That's our number one goal, right, as educators. And when we were getting feedback from our students, it was quite obvious that they were not experiencing, or it wasn't made evident to them that what we were asking them to do in high school actually had a relevance to their career pathway at graduation. And so we needed to be more intentional about defining that, about what they're doing. And, our work, and actually our partnership with TNTP was rooted in the opportunity myth, the research behind the opportunity myth, and how schools for years have told students, if you come and do what we ask you to do, you'll have all this opportunity upon graduation. And so that was the foundation for our strategic planning that eventually led to this CTE project. And so it was really about relevance to your experience in high school and the relevance to your opportunities after high school. And we always say task predicts performance. That's one of our tenets here. And so we were asking ourselves, when our students are in class, are they actually practicing what we expect them to learn? Or do we, is the experience in the classroom transferable to success outside of the school walls? And so that was a big part of compelling the work in the CTE program.
Thank you. I really appreciate you naming the importance of CTE work addressing this persistent challenge of making learning relevant. So it's so much more than entry into a particular job, but the skills to navigate that, the meaningful, relevant experience they have in schooling as students. So even, it sounds like you had a very student outcome-based approach. It wasn't about the class, it was what the course and the experience would actually help young people solve for.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah touched on that with regards to the academic guidance, the function of our guidance counselors and our course offerings. So we, this year, our course offerings were based on student request. And that can get cloudy in a guidance department because you have staffing challenges, but we ended up, the program at All Memorial became so strong that we had to add more sections to our biomed program, because we do have tremendous interest, and that's because students are having excellent experience in those placements. And so really the other piece to that is making sure that we have representation. So we want the courses that students want to be accessible, and we want representation in those classes. We have a wonderful diverse student population, and we expect when we look at program participation that we see our student diversity reflected in participation numbers.
Excellent, excellent. I also want to repeat something you said earlier about tasks predict performance. We tend to spend a lot of time talking about grades in one space, predicting grades in another. And I think what you're doing is you're offering a renaming of what we actually want to value and incentivize is the performance that may be happening within classrooms, but also beyond classrooms. And to that end, I'd like to open this up to all three of you, and Elaine and Rusty, curious of your thinking in the context that you're leading learners. In what ways could what you're developing variations of this model inform broader discussions about what like high school education needs to look like and even workforce preparation? Rusty, would you like to start? I'm just curious, as you're seeing the learners in your context, what are some of the takeaways and directions for us moving forward? I'm going to see if you can hear us. Give it 10 seconds. You might not be. Elaine, would you like to kick off?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you cut out just
sorry.
a hair there, but I think I
Great.
know what the question was. So, you know, I think from an employer in the medical field, I think you know, I can hear you now. Yeah. I think. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can hear
Yes,
you, Rusty.
Rusty, we can hear you.
I'm afraid
Okay.
his connection isn't strong, but I'm going to go back. I can
you
jump
guys
in
hear
on
me?
that for just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and jump in because that connection seems to be faltering. And I
Okay.
saw it in the chat. There were
I was saying, as the medical field, I think it's important. You know, it's been an opportunity for this.
His is so delayed. I don't think he can participate. It's making it challenging. We talked about, and I saw in the chat, there were a lot of questions about this. The 5 durable skills as named by our partners, our industry partners: character, collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. And so I saw there were quite a few questions about that. That isn't where we started. We really batted around a lot of different ways of saying that, and then it turned into the nifty 5 C's, right? But then we went into really naming what that means. And we're still in the process of thinking about and working with teachers on what that looks like in the classroom, how to make that a natural part of student performance in the classroom. But I know that when our students, when we talk about defining when you are strong with collaboration and giving students opportunities to collaborate, they really thrive, right? That relevance and that experience has been, it changes the way classrooms look. And so it's not unusual to see quite a bit of lecture in a classroom. And we know how schools have resisted change, and we do so many things in schools that we've always done. But when you're exercising those durable skills, it does reduce lecture, and it really changes the way a classroom looks because you're focused more on what the students are doing. Because when we say task predicts performance, we believe that kids have to practice what we expect them to do, and that really minimizes their need to sit and listen. So it changes that up. The other place that we have to get more creative, and we've continued to have to think about how to be more creative, we had a conversation this morning, is about scheduling. And so for students to be in a workplace setting, it's not reasonable to think that I can schedule a student for 50 minutes a day in a workplace, right? But yet we are wanting these to be credit-bearing experiences, and so we have to get a certain number of hours in a semester to make it worth a credit. And so this morning we are setting the stage for internships that might be on Tuesday and Thursday during 5th and 6th hours. So student transportation is simplified, and the employer has a commitment of hosting the student only 2 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week. And the time that the student's on site is extended so that they have an opportunity to have a real experience at the place of employment. And so our scheduling has to be different to make this possible as well. In schools, you know, when you talk about the master schedule in a large high school, that sends people into a bit of a panic, but it just has to be something to where we look outside of past practice and really shake things up so that students can get this opportunity.
Elaine, to that point, you earlier also emphasized ensuring that this workplace learning experience is accessible to all the students, including those that have other responsibilities, already have after school jobs. Why was that a priority? And I think what the audience might be curious is like, how did you make that work?
Well, our guidance, I think the heart of the matter is oftentimes your guidance department. And they're doing the difficult work of scheduling lots of students. Each of our counselors has quite a few, hundreds of students that they're responsible for scheduling. So our high school created an advisory period where our students are assigned to a staff advisor as freshmen, and they stay with that same advisor for 4 years. And so that's an extension of the guidance department. It's a staff member who gets to know our students, gets to know their aspirations, and helps them to consult on their program, and also encourages them to stay on track in all their coursework so that they can get to junior and senior year where they have room in their schedule for these opportunities as well. So that was one extension of the guidance department. Another partnership that developed that I think is really important to talk about is, I say, what's special in Alton are our partnerships and our community. And we have an educational foundation. The Alton Educational Foundation is a local nonprofit. And when we talked to them about this mission, and we really talked about our need to have connectivity with industry partners, although our administrators are school bound. And so the Alton Educational Foundation hired an executive director who has the role of creating partnerships. So this person, who happens to be our retired superintendent, Christy Baumgartner, she has been connecting with our Riverbend Growth Association and so many local businesses to talk about how to facilitate opportunities for students. And so I'd mentioned the 5 pathways that we've defined for endorsements in fire science, early childhood education, electricity, engineering, medical professions. In addition to that, this semester we are gathering internship partners in a wide range of fields. So that includes, we have our local radio station is partnering to offer internships. We have a body shop that's offering internships. We have actually students who are building a home in our construction trades program again this year, thanks to a partnership. We have salons who are offering internships. And so because we're getting outside of the constraints of school schedules and really looking at alternate transportation and alternate schedules, we're finding more partners are interested and willing to allow and offer these internships. In addition, because we've defined it, and again, you might think, okay, the artifacts are, a handbook, does that really change anything? Well, a handbook with definitions and resources to make things very evident for the employer is an important product. It is important to put things in a company's hands that says, this is what the agreement looks like, this is what your liability looks like, this is what the consent looks like, and this is what your obligation is if you choose to get involved in hosting an intern.
Thank you. And I'm glad you spoke to the staffing component, because that's been a reoccurring question, as well as investing in staff in roles that maybe perhaps didn't exist in the traditional system. We are getting a lot of very interesting questions from the audience. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pivot in real time to those to give a chance for them to hear directly from you on the things that they're curious about. And this one was actually my question as well. So I'm going to read it directly from the audience member. I'm curious, Superintendent Lane, from your perspective as a leader in the district, and also Sarah, as you're working with multiple districts, like what are you seeing even at scale in that way? So the question is, one, what did the hands-on opportunities inside of schools look like? I think folks are looking for some tangible examples. The second part is, how did you ensure alignment with the standards and success of the end-of-year assessments with these experience? And I suspect they're referring to the accountability systems within the states as well.
I understand.
Loaded question.
Yeah, of course. Well, remember, these are juniors and seniors who have successfully completed their core content, right? So when you're talking about assessments in Illinois, we just changed. We were SAT junior year, and now we're ACT. We changed the assessment. But our students who are having these experiences are still getting their core content. And as a matter of fact, I would say, in my observation, they're more motivated in the core content because they see this as a pathway to opportunity as opposed to jumping through hoops. And there's certainly most students are, I mean, aside from competing for college placement, a lot of students who aren't intending to go to college are not losing sleep over the SAT or the ACT. So this is about learning for the sake of accessing your livelihood after graduation. As far as inside the classroom, when I was reflecting before this webinar, I was thinking about the success criteria. And in the biomed program, not only do we have these placement opportunities, but we just have an amazing teacher, and she is committed to the student outcomes beyond the classroom. And so when you talk about success in her class, she's talking about success criteria that students will use in the industry. So she is ensuring that the students who get the placement at Alton Memorial Hospital are practicing those skills. So that includes her labs in her classroom, that we just purchased equipment, medical beds to have in the classroom so that they can get the practice before they ever get to the hospital. They're doing in the biomedical program. And as far as our other programs, our early childhood program, we have the district has a grant funded early childhood program. So our students are getting placement there as part of their coursework. That is a course they enroll in. And so within their introductory course, they are getting real life experience in the early childhood program. We have an electricity course that is hosted off site, but it is an Alton High course. And we have that in partnership with the IBEW. So we have people from the Electricians Union who are consulting on student activities. And so it's not traditional coursework. It is actual coursework where students are doing the work they have essentially pre-activities where they can get feedback in the classroom before they ever get on site into these placements.
Another follow-up question to that, did you face any challenges in recruiting, selecting, hiring educators for this pathways courses?
Yes, that is real. We definitely have challenges in hiring for these courses. And so, our person who is teaching construction trades is a home builder. And so in Illinois, if you have 2,000 hours of industry experience, you can get, and the district says that they need you to teach a class, you can get certification by demonstrating those 2,000 hours of industry experience. And so I'm sure he never thought he was going to be a certified teacher, yet here he is, a certified teacher. And he was actually an amazing story because he's a graduate of the former construction trades program in Alton. And so in a conversation about really tending to this mission, he was emotionally invested in wanting to give back to the program that created his livelihood and his business that has made him successful. So the schedule that he has is a little bit unique in employment because we have to be respectful of his other obligations. Our person who's teaching the electricity course is only teaching 2 sections a day. So it's a part-time instructor who also has other interests outside of being a full-time teacher. And so the staffing is a challenge. And we continue to recruit by trying to be creative about what we offer. There are a couple of courses that we offer where we have a teacher who handles Skyward and attendance and all the high school logistical, what probably what a lot of people who have the industry experience aren't interested in doing. So we have a teacher who's handling that portion of the course, and then the teacher of record has the certification in the specialized industry. So the staffing, we just are going about it and trying to stay creative.
I appreciate that, Superintendent. There's so many moving pieces, and it sounds like it is so important to really constantly reflect and think about what are the pieces you want to really hold tightly to and not compromise on, but then have a set of flexibilities to be able to meet the learners where they are. So this question is actually for all three of you, and I'll ask you to answer it in a bit of a rapid fire way, because I think there's a lesson to be learned here from all three of your perspectives. And Rusty, I'm hoping we'll hear you and would love to invite you to go first, then Sarah, then Superintendent Elaine. So the question here is, from your point of view, what would you say are the three most critical pieces that are non-negotiables that in doing this again, you would prioritize and recommend others prioritize? Rusty, what are those three for you?
Yeah, I think the foundation of that handbook, I think, is a new step for us that I think is paramount. So working through that, because that really sets the framework for this with the student, with the teacher, and with the employer. I think the opportunity to put kids through an interview is very valuable because they're going to need that experience too, and it allows us to get to know them. And I think feedback. I think that feedback mechanism for not only the how's it going with the instructor to the employer, but also to the student, because they're going to need that experience of getting feedback on the job. So I'll stop there with my three.
Excellent. Sarah?
Yeah, I think for me, just thinking about from the consulting side and working with Elaine, I do believe that us starting with a landscape analysis to truly understand what exists there and what are the opinions and experiences all the way from the student to the community member is actually really integral, because we can't build something unless we know what are the resources that we have available and the interest and the desire. And then I think just building on what exists there and tailoring it to the community versus, many consulting companies can come in and say, I have the answer for you. But I think at TNTP, we pride ourselves in making sure that we meet the exact community needs. And I think this will be so much more replicable and brought to scale in other places if we maintain that same structure.
I could not agree more with Sarah. I think that is the point. What's transferable here, is the mission is so clear, and the prioritization of the mission is so clear. And in any setting, what was powerful about what we did this year and what any setting should do is to lift up first student voice and student experience, and then tying in our staff. But then what really put it, I think to life is bringing in our community stakeholders. So when we had the industry partners in the room and those three groups of people had a chance to collaborate and really talk about defining this work, that's really when it came to life, because everyone left very clear and very united on making the program soar.
Excellent, excellent. I really appreciate the asset-based lens, recognizing that there's so many strengths within communities, families, and learners. And without that slowing down to speed up to understand what assets you can tap into, you could inadvertently be creating programming and learning that is already in some shape or form there. The other piece I heard, going back to some of the lessons we learned from our Paths of Opportunity report, was the power of relationships, whether we call it social capital, or just connections in general. But even the idea, Rusty, you mentioned about putting kids through interviews, not only does it, I suspect, help the adults get to know the kids and vice versa, but you're actually building a skill of not just about access to relationships, but do you have the confidence in how you show up in the room and how you speak? And so much of this is just practicing those real durable skills that they will need over time. So I appreciate you guys naming these critical components of the journey. This is an interesting question. I will open it up to all of you, and it's interesting to me because I think there's this grappling of like where schooling is, where schooling can be, where schooling was. Even we look centuries ago, the idea of preparing young people for jobs and careers was not unknown to the high school world. So the pendulum has kind of swung. The question here is, and it's a valid question given where we are, how do you differentiate academic standards and CTE standards? Or I'll say differently, how do you reconcile when there are standards that feel disparate from each other?
I was thinking about this in the trend because, when I went to high school, and like I said, our home builder went to high school, if you chose to go to the vocational center, that was your pathway. And I think that's why it was, I guess, challenged, is because it was seen as a tracking mechanism. And the way it was set up, if that was your schedule, then after you graduated, you couldn't go to college because you conceivably weren't prepared to go to college, right? And so it was a vocational track, and it was the criticism, as I understood it, was you're taking a freshman, a 14-year-old, and asking them to make a choice at 14 that limits their opportunities upon graduation. And as I was processing, that trend over the past 35 years, what's different now is our students, if they may have an endorsement participating in one of these CCPE pathways, they still have what they need to be able to go to college. By the time they graduate, they have enough time to take a pathway and take their college prep courses. And actually, in these pathways, there are dual credit courses that are very much college prep courses that also lend to the endorsement on their diploma. And so it's not a tracking mechanism as it maybe once was seen, but rather it actually expands opportunities upon graduation as opposed to limiting them.
There's a question around partnerships. I'm actually curious, even between the work of the district and Rusty, like how you guys came together. This question is, as a provider of a K-12 STEM enrichment program, how can we partner with school districts and communities to create CTE programs supporting our local key industries? Like, how do you get started?
I can start. I think the relationship with between the employer and the school district, you start having the conversations about, I guess if you're a school district, what makes a student or a new employee, what types of skill sets do you look for, and then, our industry is looking for, most of the kids see Grey's Anatomy and they think it's just doctors and nurses, but there's a vast 50 to 100 different avenues that you could go. You hear Superintendent Kane talk about the construction viability in that class and accounting and all of those play a role when you think about our hospital systems with physical plants and billing and coding, and it's not just physicians and nurses, but there's many different avenues, whether it be radiology or pharmacy, those types of things. I think it's just having those one-on-one conversations and developing, could our kids come and shadow? I think we started with shadowing program to really get a view for what goes on in a hospital to now this more honed in, purposeful, relationship where we've taken it to the next level, if that makes sense.
I would agree. And what we believe is, students rise to high expectations. And when we put our students in the position of developing relationships with employers, we are always given feedback about how amazed the employer is with the quality of students that they get to interact with. Just like when our stakeholder advisory came together, our students came, they showed up, they were engaged, they were insightful, they were articulate, they were, and I think, there's a perception of high school students sometimes that is a misperception. And so by setting the stage for high expectations, our students rise to the occasion. And to Rusty's point, those initial interactions encourage the internship provider to get involved because they undoubtedly they aspire to hire our graduates, right? Once they get a chance to meet them. And so I think it's motivating for the employer as well.
If I could add one more thing there, I think, coupled with this, I think it's forcing us to take a hard look at our scholarship programs for when they graduate from the Alton School District, which candidates that have come through here that have impressed us so much that we're willing now to underwrite the cost of their tuition to go to college, to come back and continue that if they so choose. So I think this lends itself to even bigger possibilities.
Thank you, Rusty. That's actually, I think, a really important point to reiterate about the value of CTE programs. You're creating options and choices. Again, they may want to go to college at a different time or for a different reason or for the same reason. And so ensuring that we're not having them kind of foreclose on one pathway, but the skills they're building, the content knowledge, the certifications, they can all be transferable or activated immediately based on where they are. So those are really important pieces I think sometimes we lose in the mix. Superintendent Lane, how long has the CTE program been active? And do you have like a sense of like what percentage of the high school students are participating in it?
Well, that's funny. The program is as long as I can remember. I graduated from Alton High School in 1989, and there was the JB. I know Rusty's laughing because we're close to the same age, but the JB Johnson Vocational Center was alive and well. We built our current high school around that vocational center, so the facility, we maintained those facilities and continued with the classes have been there all along. And as I said before, but as far as students electing to take a class, I mean, I would say at least a third of our students, if more likely half, take at least a course in the CTE department. This work is about making that beyond an elective and really making that course selection make sense with regards to the skills that they develop and the sequence of skills so that there's a progression when you start taking those classes that that each year you're having growth and outcomes and meeting objectives as you participate from freshman to senior year.
Thank you. We are right about to be at time, so I'll invite each of you to do a quick rapid fire again to share with the audience any final thoughts, perhaps something I didn't ask, but you think is very valuable to know. Your audience is very eager to understand how to bring these elements to life in their own programs. There's curiosities around, what does this mean for humanities? What does this mean for holistic development? What does this mean by graduation requirements? I know we can't answer everything right now, but if there's one takeaway you can offer to keep things moving for them, what would that be? Sarah, why don't you kick us off?
I think the biggest takeaway is, again, just finding out like what are the resources and the interest and the investment that's already been established in the community. And I think it was helpful for Alton to have us to be a support to bring that vision to life and thinking about, do you have somebody in your district that you can lean on for that has a vision that can make these structures come into place, or do you need to use somebody outside? I think everything is set up the way that it needs to be. Even the CTE standards are extremely rigorous. They involve lots of cross-functional skills, and they are academic based as well. So I think those who are interested in making the investment, this could pay huge dividends for their district.
Thank you. Rusty?
I would just say don't don't be afraid to reach out to employers. I think you'll find that most are starved to find and work with school districts for the future employees that why not have that first crack and try and help and assist and it raises everything up. So from a hospital's perspective, I've enjoyed being part of this process, and I encourage all of you to knock on, maybe utilize your school board members who are probably mostly employers at some location if you want to start. But yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to employers. We're very hungry and happy to partner.
Appreciate all three of you so much, and we know there's so much more work to do, and leaning on each other to learn about what's working, how to do it better is so important. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our panelists. If you'd like to watch today's presentation again, an on-demand archive will be made available through edweek.org or using today's link within the next 24 hours. Also, if you'd like to connect with someone from TNTP to learn more about the work or how we can connect you to the panelists, or simply scan the QR codes here as well. Again, Superintendent Elaine, Rusty, Sarah, thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.